Hello, everyone. My name is Chris. Welcome to the fourth installment at our series Talks at WholeRen. It is my great honor today to introduce Dr. Wendell McConnaha. He has come all the way from Chicago to be with us here today, so we're very grateful to have him here and to share his experiences with us. After the talk, we'll have a short section for questions. Just to give him a brief introduction, he obtained his bachelor's in education from Wayne State College in Nebraska, and then went on to the University of Nebraska, where he obtained a master's in elementary counseling and psychotherapy, an endorsement in educational administration, and an education specialist degree in education administration, and went on to Purdue University, where he got his PhD in educational leadership. He's also a very traveled man. He's been across the world working in a number of different countries, such as Indonesia, Nigeria, Romania, Chile, the USA, the UK, the UAE, and China. So he's had a lot of experiences educating students, educating teachers, and administrators, as well as overseeing the construction of schools, which he's done both in Nigeria and in the Middle East. Most recently, he was the principal at Tsinghua High School International in Beijing, and recently retired from that position. So we're very excited to hear his opinion being a principal in all of these different countries and the different experiences he's had. And I should also mention that it is a personal honor to have him here today, because I was fortunate enough to have him as my principal at Falk School right up the hill over here. He came in near the end of my time there, and over the 9 years he was at Falk, through his creation and renovation, the talent he brought to that, he has completely revamped the school, the environment, and it's completely beautiful now. It's unrecognizable, so it's fantastic to see the tangible impact he's already made in our educational community, and it's just a great honor for me, being a place that's near and dear to my heart. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Wendell McConnaha.
Thank you, Chris. With all these young people, I feel like yay. It's a situation that I want to talk a little bit about, because it's going to go out on YouTube. I'm going to give a little bit more of the background so that people that are watching it that aren't part of the audience understand sort of where I'm coming from administratively. This is my 49th year in education. I started as a public school teacher, elementary teacher, and then became a public school counselor. From there, I became an assistant principal and then a public school principal, and that was the first 15 years of my life. In about 1986, I became the principal of the University of Chicago Laboratory School and an associate professor at the University of Chicago. From there, I went to Louisiana State University as head of their laboratory school. And I should say to you and also to people that are watching this, a laboratory school is a K-12 school that's part of a university. So Tsinghua Fuzhong is a laboratory school for Tsinghua University in Beijing. So that would be an example of a laboratory school. After LSU, I went to Arizona, and I was superintendent of schools for the Navajo Indian Reservation. From there, I went to University of Iowa, where I was director of their laboratory school. And then I decided that I wanted to do international work. I'd already started at Chicago. Chris mentioned that the very first job that I had internationally was in Nigeria. And I was there working off and on from about 1992 all the way up through 2000. After that, I was asked by the government in the UK to help them set up schools that were part of their university system. And it was called a Beacon School Project. And these were K-12 schools that were affiliated with an English university. After I went to the University of Iowa, I started really expanding to what I was doing. And that was my first time I worked in China. I worked in China in 1994 to 1996, off and on, mainly with Beijing Normal University, but also with East China Normal in Shanghai, Dalian, Shenyang, Guangzhou, Macau, Hong Kong, mostly along the eastern coast, but with a variety of universities. And we would help them set up schools. We would also do teacher training during the summer. And so that's what I did at that particular point. During that time, I also, as Chris mentioned, worked in Indonesia. I worked in Romania extensively doing the same thing, and in Chile in South America. So at that point, I was hired to come to University of Pittsburgh, where, as Chris said, I ran Falk School and was also an associate professor in a school of education. I also taught the leadership course, developed a leadership course for undergraduates at Pitt. Do we have any Pitt people here, people that went to University of Pittsburgh? Okay. For those that didn't, the leadership program is a certificate program that you take courses and you take a capstone course that talks to you about how to be a leader in whatever you go into. And it's all for undergraduates, but it's in things like, I had people that were pre-law, pre-med. It was from all across the university. So we did leadership at that particular point. I retired in 2014, and at that point, I had become friends with Andrew and knew him from his student placement program here within the Pittsburgh area. I had gone to a number of meetings with him. He had visited our school, and he contacted his friends, because he also went to Tsinghua, and said, this person's retiring, he's got a lot of international experience, you may want to look at him. That was on Thursday. On Saturday, 3 people were here from Tsinghua University and talked to me about this program. And they said, would you come to China and would you develop a new school that is an international school, but only for Chinese national students? So every student I worked with in China their parents had made the decision that they are going to go to university someplace outside of China. And in order to do that, they needed to be prepared in an American-style curriculum. So our school is not located on Tsinghua campus. Our school is actually located in Olympic Park. So a great place to have the school. We've got like 300 acres of parkland. It's beautiful. Our school is actually built around the Lotus tennis facility, the #2 tennis court from the Olympics. So in the middle of my school, I have a gym that seats 22,000 people, because this is where they played the tennis, and they still do play the tennis there for the China Open. So we started the first year with lower grades and 10th grade for high school, because as you all know, in China, the secondary school is a 3-year program for the high school. And so the equivalent of that in the US would be sophomores, 10th grade. So we had students in 10th grade. Each year we added, and this year, for the first year, we have students all the way from preschool through high school. And because the school has the Tsinghua name behind it, and because it's an American curriculum, we've had a lot of students. It's gone very well. My responsibility was to be the academic principal. So I needed to develop the curriculum, develop the master schedule, hire the teachers, and initially I was the only administrator the first year. So I got to do all of that. And then as we grew, we added more principals, we added more administrators, and we got to where we are now. So one of the things that it is suggested that I would talk to you about is how is my experience in China, which all of you are familiar with, and most of you work with, versus other places that I've been. I think the biggest issue that I dealt with in China, first of all, was the language issue. I did not speak Chinese before I went. I don't speak very much now that I'm back. A little, but not a lot. In other places where I worked, whether it was Africa, South America, Romania, United Arab Emirates, everybody spoke some English. So when I went out to take a taxi, I could tell the taxi driver where to take me and they understood. Or when I went to Lotus to buy groceries in China, no one spoke English. None of the labels were in English. So when I was looking to try to adjust personally, it was very, very difficult. That was probably the issue I had most. Having said that, I thoroughly enjoyed the experience in Beijing for that particular year. As a principal, I would recommend to teachers considering the job, and certainly to administrators, to consider it as an option. The parents are supportive. Teachers are absolutely revered in China, as our administrators, even Megwan with white hair, we're still revered in China. It's a situation where there is real value to education. The only time our parents got upset with us when they thought their children weren't working hard enough. They said an American school is too easy. You need to make them have more homework. They need to do this. But as far as supporting the program, 100% parent support. It is much greater than you would find not only in America, but in any other country where I worked. Hiring teachers to come over there. Did any of you go to international schools in China? All of you went to public schools in China. Okay. In the international schools in China, because we're a public school, we had a problem. A regular international school basically can do the curriculum that they want. In our school, we taught Chinese because we were a public school, and we had to teach it exactly the same amount of time that the students would have had in a public school. So we had, every class was 5 days a week, except Chinese, which was 7 days a week, because that's what the ministry said had to happen. We taught Chinese history at the middle school. We could teach it at the high school, but it had to be taught at the middle school, which meant our faculty had to be 50% Chinese and 50% international, because some of the courses, like the Chinese language and Chinese history, needed to be taught by Chinese instructors. So we had to find Chinese instructors who spoke the language, understood the culture, but who had gone to school outside of China. So for example, Xiaofang, who taught history for us, had an undergraduate degree in history in China, a master's degree in China, but a doctorate degree from the University of Hawaii. So he understood the language, he understood what had to be done from the ministry standpoint, but he also understood American education. So that was problematic. We found people, we had good people. The first year we hired teachers from all over the world to come in, plus China. At the end of year one, not one teacher left. Every teacher came back, which in an international school is very rare. It told me two things. First, we'd done a nice job of hiring people, and two, they felt strong enough about the school that they came back for year two. They're all on one-year contracts. They could have left at the end of the year. The second thing that happened was in year two, we hired about 60 new teachers because we were adding grades at all levels. Of those 60 teachers, over 20 of them were because of referrals from our current teaching staff. So you're teaching history and you call back to your country, whether it's America, South Africa, Italy, we had teachers from all those areas, and they say, this is really a good place to work. You should come here. And so 20 of the 60 teachers we hired the second year came from referrals from our existing teachers, which again is a good barometer for how things were going. Some of the questions that I was asked to address. Biggest problem that I encountered from an administrative standpoint was the government. The problem was that Tsinghua University was asked to set up this school. There's not another one like it. We're not an international school. The international school on campus only takes foreign passport holders. We only take Chinese passport holders. So they said, create an international curriculum that will prepare students for American, UK, Australian universities, but also adhering to the following regulations for a Chinese public school. So I mentioned things like the Chinese language that was set by, and when we had to do particular courses. But also, the government had trouble deciding if we were private or public. You know, some of the things we had to do, some of the things they'd say, no, you don't have to do that because you're private. And then they would say, no, you have to do that because you're public. And so it sort of went back and forth. The other thing that was difficult to work with were the changes. In China, and I'm telling you and you know this, but for our audience that's watching this, in China, the regulations are set by the local authority not by the federal government. So for example, in Beijing, you cannot hire a teacher that's over 60 years of age. So we would go to a recruitment fair, and they would interview at Shanghai International, and they would interview with us. Shanghai could offer them a position because the rule doesn't apply in Shanghai. We couldn't, because it does. Students who come to our school in the United States, students that come to school, they go to a district based on where their parents live and what their legal residency is. In China, again, you know this, the residency is based on where their family originated. So if a family moves from Shanghai to Beijing, the child cannot go to a public school in Beijing because Beijing municipality is the one that gives the diplomas, and they won't do that for someone that's not from their municipality. So the students that we had in our class, although they were Chinese national students, they tended to be students who were not Beijingers. They tended to be people that were from other areas and were already looking at options. The final thing that I'll say, and then I'll open it up because I really want to hear your questions, and I don't want to talk about things you don't want to hear. I want to answer questions that you might have. So I'm giving you a warning. You need to come up with questions in 2 minutes. So think about that. So what happens is the Chinese system does not equate to the American system. In China, elementary school is 1 through 6. In America, it's 1 through 5. Middle school is 7, 8, 9. Here, it's 6, 7, 8. China has a 3-year high school. We have a 4-year high school. So that's why the first year we had to start with students in the 10th grade. So how do you get a high school diploma with only going 3 years if you want to go to an American university? Those kinds of things we needed to work out. The second thing was it means that a parent has to make the decision before the child has finished elementary school on whether or not they want to go to our school. If they make the decision in 5th grade to start with us in middle school, they're not going to be prepared for the Gaokao. They're not going to be able to pass it. If they wait until the 6th grade to come in, they've missed 1 year of our middle school. So trying to get the systems to match up is very, very difficult. Plus in China, more and more parents are now saying, we want to go to your school, but we're only going to go through, pick a grade, 8th grade. And then we want our son or daughter to go to the US and do their high school in America so that they're better prepared for college. Well, again, that's fine, but that still means they've got to make a decision at something other than a natural break in what they have in China. And then the ones that really made me crazy were the ones that said, we really don't want to go to the US, we would like to go to Australia. Australia's lovely. I worked in Australia. It's a great country, but their year starts in January. The rest of the world's year starts in September for academics. So now what do you do if you want to start in 9th grade in Australia? Do you hang out for 6 months at the mall? I mean, I'm not sure what you do. It's a situation that it doesn't match up well. So we tried to tell parents very clearly, you need to make this decision. If you make this decision, you are committing to something other than a Chinese university. If you make the decision and then change your mind, you're out of options. It's going to be virtually impossible for your child to be prepared for the primary test that they've got to take if they go back. So it takes a huge commitment on the part of the parents. It's a huge risk. And it's a situation where, from a teaching standpoint, it is, without a doubt, the most rewarding experience that as an administrator, or one of the most that I've had. I won't say the most since I was Chris's principal, and having Chris as a student was clearly my most rewarding experience. But it's a situation that when you're looking at these particular areas, I think the teachers that we brought in year 1, I think are the strongest group of teachers that I've ever had any place. And they were in Beijing choosing to be there. That includes the University of Chicago. These teachers were first rate. We were very well prepared. They stayed. The school is now very successful. We're growing by about 400 students a year, which is all kinds of problems, but it's also good. mainly because we added grade levels, and so it grew very quickly. It won't grow as quickly now. We'll just be adding sections of grade levels. But when we started, we only had like 6 grades out of the 13. So I want to hear your question.